Welcome to Soul Conversations with Sandra, the podcast. Welcome in to another great conversation. I hope you enjoy yourself. My guest is Carrie Doan. She's from IG's Carrie Doan Coaching. Let me give you a little information. Um, She's helping women to win at the game of money. Yay, Carrie. All right. She also believes in, let's put this in quotations, borrowing a belief. I asked her to share some more information with that. And we're going to talk about the energy of intentions, the law of attraction. We're just going to have a conversation. We're going to ask questions and shift and evolve today. I hope you shift and evolve with me. So I attune myself to the creative impulses that indwell in me and seek to express in, through, and as me today as we mindfully enter into a wonderful conversation. She is here now. I would like you to realize that this is a podcast. You can ask questions. Please put it in my question box. If you're having a problem with the question box, no problem. Put it in the comments and we will try to, at least I will try to keep track of the comments. And if you say hello to me, I will do this. And basically do this when my guest is speaking so we don't interrupt her. All right, so let me invite her in. So I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose my mind. And I think I like it. Welcome, Carrie. Welcome.
Hello,
Hello.
Sandra. So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for accepting. Um, I just listen to you. I try to catch your lives as much as possible because you give such golden nuggets about lack, about that mentality. You give so many golden nuggets about how a person can move from that dogmatic thought process. And I just wanted you to share it. I want the message to get out there, so
Uh, Absolutely. And so, yeah, thank you so much. I think, what I'm hearing you say is this mentality of, I would call it scarcity,
yeah.
sort of this perception of like, I don't have enough or I'm not enough. And, uh, and so, yeah, I speak quite often about this because I found it to be quite pervasive, especially in our culture, specifically too as it relates to money. So I work with a lot of people who feel like I just don't have enough in my life, or how am I going to get more? And so I work with people to do what I call this mindset shift toward abundance.
Right.
Um, and so this is where we are now cultivating new beliefs and a new perspective that notices what is working well, that focuses on things getting better. There is more than enough here. So it's a matter of kind of shifting your attention from what is missing to what is happening with the intention of expanding the abundant mindset. Does that make sense as I'm explaining it?
Yes, totally makes sense for me because as my higher mind is translating it to me, it's kind of almost seeing instead of looking at the negative
Mhm.
of everything, finding kind of like the positive, or the things that do work, and kind of translating that into the negative dogma stories that um, are trying to keep us in that scarcity mindset,
Mm.
right?
Yes, yes, right. So like I fully believe that our perception is our reality. And so we're most of the time not very conscious of how we're perceiving our life. I
Right.
think it's what 95% of the brain is subconscious. And so we're only operating at a 5% of awareness most of the time. And so thinking about that, becoming aware of what are the narratives and the stories that I'm playing out in my mind, because that has such an impact on the outcomes that we are creating for ourselves. So going to your point of these negative stories or thought patterns, how those show up, like in a lack mentality, and deliberately shifting your attention toward a new narrative, one that says, yeah, there's so much to appreciate, there's so much to be grateful for, what do I have that I can continue to expand upon? And so that way you're now creating a new way of perceiving your life. And, quite often the emotions will follow suit. You'll start to feel more positive energy in your mind and your body. And then you'll start to see the outcomes in your life follow suit as well. So I'm such a believer that it all starts in your mind and translates through your body into your actions based on how you're perceiving the world. Is that making sense as I'm
Yeah,
describing?
it's totally making sense. So my first question about this, did you have a moment of awakening or awareness that something that, how do I say it? An awareness in you, in within you, that this lack mentality or scarcity mentality had to change. Was it because of old stories that you grew up with, or when did this become the monumental or pivotal moment for you?
Mm.
Do you mind sharing that?
Not at all. I'm an open book. And yeah, there was, I guess, a series of moments for me where back in around 2020, the catalyzing year for everybody in COVID,
Right.
um, I, at that point, was married. And so there were a lot of things starting to shift. I got really deep into a new meditation practice, and that was starting to bring up new questions for me and help me to really see more objectively, like, what am I thinking? And so I, as that was happening, I was becoming aware, like there was this feeling I had in my body of like, there's more out there, right? And so becoming aware of that there's more that I'm kind of missing out on in this relationship, that started to create and catalyze action steps for me. And so in that process, I was realizing that I had this very limited perspective on what was possible or what I could receive in this life. And so that started this whole series of events that led to me getting separated and ultimately divorced. But I, in that time period, radically awakened to myself and to my desires. And so as I went through that kind of hero's journey, I would call it,
Mm-hmm.
I I then became more aware of, as it relates to money, how much I was limiting myself in my perception of how much I could create for myself, like income wise, and how much wealth I could create for myself as a single mom,
Mm-hmm.
and how much I would even allow myself to receive. Because when you're stuck in a lack mentality, quite often there's a lot of maybe guilt or shame motivating that awareness. And so once you become once you start to notice what's actually happening, you can then deliberately start to shift out of that. So for me, it was very intentional over a couple years, I would say, where I talk about this a lot in some of the presentations I'll do, where I I would feel that sort of anxiety or that stress come up, that feeling of like, oh no, I'm not going to have enough money, kind of venturing out now as a single mom. I didn't have a partner anymore to rely on. And so that was very active in my nervous system and in my mind. But I would consciously choose to not give it attention, and I would keep redirecting to trust, to
Okay.
believing in more. Like I actually can create more. And so over time, that literally created a sort of rewiring of my brain where it shifted from not having enough to having more than enough. And then all of a sudden, all these manifestations started happening in my life financially as I
Yeah.
was doing this work. So I don't know if that answers your, that's kind of like a shorter answer to the question,
No.
but so much happened in that time period that was just like massively catalyzing on all levels.
Yeah, on all levels, the same thing. Things that I had just literally, Carrie, put on the back burner, things that the divine was putting on a front burner, but me, because of a a story of not just lack, but that story of fear plus lack, that
Mm,
would flow in and out,
yes.
right? In certain areas of our lives. We have literally these compartments of our life. It's not just one big long life. There are compartments, and fear can say, "Oh, she sees me here. Wait. I'm going to go over to this compartment, and I'm going to allow her not to see fear there, but I'll hide until she comes over here, and then I'll bounce back." And along with stories, not and again, not really delivered to me by my mother, but delivered to me by the grown-ups around me, where you'd always hear the grown-ups when they're having their their little soirees, or a little cocktail party here, or dinner here, or just a group talk or whatnot, and they would talk, children should be seen and not heard. What are you asking your mother for that for? Money doesn't grow on trees. That whole mentality. And then the fear factor of just like you being, a a single mother in a in a what do you call it, a work a work world that's dominated by men that are
Mm,
making more money, doing maybe the same thing that you're doing, maybe, and trying to make ends meet, but also remembering what my mom would tell me would be, ask, it goes back to the little things that she would pick up from the Baptist background that I grew up in, which was that those moments of what more. Ever since I was a kid, the moment you said, what more? Is there more to your life? I was always saying that as a kid when things didn't fit. What more? What more to this? There's got to be more to this. And my mother would always put us to sleep with certain I don't know if you would call them anecdotes or passages from the Bible or little stories or whatnot. Ask, believe, and receive. And she would
mm,
always accentuate the believe part
mm,
to get to the
mm,
receive part. So
mm,
that would kind of negate sort of kind of what the information of money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think? We're in high supply of money, or what you think you're in that same ballpark as this guy to get what they get. You got to work a little bit harder, kind of thing. And it was not that I wasn't doing real well. I got a little bit of the law of attraction and the law of manifestation down back in 2003, and I paired it with what I had learned from my mom, and I said, "Oh, okay." My mom used to always quote me another part in the Bible, which I translated to my kids as we were growing up. Call those things that be not as though they already are. Right
mm,
now, she
mm,
didn't know that she was taking that uh, belief system, um, and and making it into a embodiment. I didn't even know that word then when she was doing it for me, but I told it to my kids, and when my kids came along on the Secret DVD, my son and his then girlfriend had gave it to me as a gift, mom, and he was really excited about it. Now I'm 67 solar returns, so my kids are in their 40s. Okay, but when he gave that to me, he was in his I think he might have been embarking between 18 and 21. Okay. And he was very excited. He ran up. He says, Mom, you've got to listen to this. This is just what you've been telling us. Call those things as that be not as though they already are. Listen to it. And that was about 2003 when The Secret came out. And it took me a minute, but my daughter and I, it was coming up. I remember it. I have to giggle at this. He gave it to us sometime September or October. It sat on a shelf until about November, and he was going to show up for Christmas. And my daughter and I looked at each other and we went, we haven't watched that DVD yet. I know he's going to ask us about it. And we literally sat down, watched it, and it blew us away. It gave my daughter's going, do you feel chills up and down? You know, and literally we started with a cup of coffee, you know, getting that coffee. And then we just started looking at instead of looking at all the negatives, we started being grateful for the things that we did have that were considered to be currency. I never thought about it like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful hearing you talk about that. Because really, too, what I'm hearing is like there was a contradiction in there. Like from what you were being told, money doesn't grow on trees, to believe and you will receive, right? And so to kind of like trade that old message, we'll call it, I think in a lot of ways we are conditioned with fear-based stories, but then it doesn't line up with other aspects that I now perceive to be true. So let's say, you know, like you're alluding to, if you want something to be manifested or to be created, well, you do absolutely have to play around with the possibility that that can even exist. Like we would have never put a man on the moon if somebody hadn't originally thought of that. Like we are creators of whatever it is that we want.
Yeah.
And so I think in this transition too, what you're describing, like trading this lack mentality that's rooted in fear for an abundant perspective that's rooted in trust, you know, it takes courage, but then you start to realize how powerful you actually are in affecting change in your life and having specific outcomes show up, right? So it sounds like was something that you have experienced in your life as well, as I'm hearing you talk about that.
Oh yeah. You know, and it's a constant, I think it's a growth thing. I don't think you ever stop growing from it, because there are moments where my my daughter will remind me the moment I go into a verbal negative spot about currency, about, you know, about what would you call it, budget, or about, and I would go to that flow. And it's not wrong for us to feel it. We have to, for me, I believe I had to feel it in order to have the emotion that points me in the direction of what I want to feel instead. Right?
Yep.
And it's not, you know, it's kind of like it's easy to update your computer. Yes. But it's very hard to update this one.
Right. Yes.
It because you have to be what my mother would call, you have to be due diligent, Sandy.
Yes.
And you know, when I was a kid, she just used a big word on me. She really doesn't want me to understand it. But now, growing and as I grew in from asking and embodying questions as a child and sticking to it, I finally grasped at, I don't know, COVID helped me become that, find that compass of all the things that the divine had put on a front burner and said, here, these are the tools that you can use to help yourself, to grow yourself. And then because of old dogma stories that were prevalent, kind of helped me push it to a back burner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID was that vibrational moment in time. To me, it was just a moment in time that made me look at my compass or my GPS,
Yeah.
and then say, well, okay, it's not just affecting just people, it's affecting businesses. People are getting laid off. I was one of those people. Matter of fact, my whole work experience had started to change even before COVID. COVID just became that vibration that said, okay, Sandy, there was a time where the universe said, I heard you say that you don't want to work for anybody anymore. And I've heard people say, well, the things that you do and the skills that you have, you can work for yourself. But because of fear, right? Fear is just ingrained in there. And it's a story that's been told in there. And it's one that my ego understood and said, oh, I can help you with that. It just kind of stayed there. I mean, I even, well before, I think about 2016, 2017, I started my main business, which was called Marshall Account Solutions, because I was done with 40 years of working in accounts receivable. But the thing was, I was so freaking scared of embarking on. I knew I was good at the product because I had it all in here. The accounting was all in here. I could do that with my eyes closed. But all the other stuff that came with it, it was like, ooh, that scared me shitless. Right?
Yeah.
So I think COVID helped push all that to the front burner.
Yeah, I love that you're speaking to this because it was so catalyzing, right? For so many people to ask new questions and broaden the perspective on their lives and their choices. That's exactly what it did for me as well.
Right.
And I think it's so important to recognize, like, when fear is talking, for example. I always tell people, my clients, that when that shows up, it's not you, it's not who you are, because you are not fear, in my opinion. That's just this other voice or narrative, this thing that has been taught to you that you've attached to, and you can actually let that go, letting go of the ego, like you said. I love how you framed that, and open yourself to a new possibility that exists, that you can have what you desire. And I wanted to revisit what you said earlier about gratitude as a form of currency. I absolutely love how you're saying that, because it truly is. I mean, we hear this all the time about gratitude, be grateful, but when you really deliberately choose to appreciate, even the most minute things about your life, and you continue to cultivate that perspective and that attitude, it helps you to step into a more expansive place where life becomes a little magical, and like it feels really good, and you just see more of that. What you focus on expands. So
Right.
either
Right.
way.
I literally went from a mentality, and it wasn't a bad mentality. Every time I would pay my rent, I would just go, oh, I get to stay here one more month. Right. And it was kind of like that chuckle, kind of like that kind of sarcastic chuckle. And then when I started to go, ooh, I'm thankful and grateful I have the money to pay my rent. I'm thankful and grateful that I'm living here one more month. I'm thankful, and all those things, right? It took time, because it wasn't killing my ego. I still need my ego. My ego gives me a perception of the outside world, and then brings it into me and says, what do we want to do? Right? But it's saying, I don't know what to do with it. I know to show it to you. And I know to go back into your past to see how you dealt with it again. But, what do you want to do with it? And now that I'm just kind of tuned in to that higher being, like you said, going in and meditating and asking and embodying question, well, what do I want to do with it? And then going, okay, who do I want to be today as I'm paying my rent? I want to be joyful paying my rent. It means, and starting finally getting it. The universe can't give me anything that I'm not giving it. And I went, shit, now I get it. Okay. From 2003, learning about the law of, or the secret and the law of attraction to just a year after COVID, right? Or maybe 2 years of some application, learning that it's not about having an ego death. It's about learning to allow my ego to understand that the creator that created it wants it to merge and be part of the fold of me expressing this wonderful, beautiful life. And I deserve, or giving myself grace, I was born to deserve to be ooh, there's a word that the divine wants me to use, to be a sovereign being with all the sovereignty of growth, expansion, wisdom, and understanding. And that includes being in possession of all forms of currency, right? And it was
Yeah.
like, okay, I got that. Now I've got to translate it to my ego, which
Yeah.
takes me to the next question, because I want to make sure that we touch on, and I put this in quotations, borrowing a belief,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yeah, I love talking about this because it can be a helpful way to think about cultivating, let's just call it that abundant, expansive mindset in an area of life that you feel very fearful or insecure about. So, something that I encourage people to do is to find an area of your life where you feel security, you
Mm-hmm.
feel peace, like you almost, I don't know if I'd say certainty, but let me give you an example. So there was a time for me several years ago where I knew that in terms of my relationships, like there's 8 billion people on this earth. I don't need to ever fear that there's not going to be enough love, there's not going to be enough friendship, there's not going to be enough people to show up and care for me. And and once I became really rooted in that belief, it created a type of knowingness of like, anytime I feel lonely or anytime I feel like I need connection or support, I can just reach out and go get it. Like I went through this process of cultivating some very authentic relationships, and that created a type of confidence or security that, if ever I need something, I'm good. So at this time, though, I was struggling to feel that level of confidence and security when it came to money. And so what I did was anytime I would feel that insecurity come up or anxiety financially, when I would start to wonder, like, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough to get by as a single mom? Like, I just don't. And I wanted to create my own business too, which has a lot of levels of unpredictability to it, right? There's usually not a lot of stability that comes until you've been established for a long time. But I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I was very committed, but I had to travel through a lot of insecurities. And as I was doing that, I used the confidence that I had in this other area of my life with relationships as evidence to support this process of believing that I could have, be, do, create whatever I wanted financially. Because over here in my relationships, I'm seeing that it's true, right? And I went through that same process of like really building that belief around people that became very strong and steady. And so when I would encounter some kind of doubt, for example, we all have doubts when we're unsure about things or when we're trying to build confidence in an area. Anytime I would have doubts around my finances, or I just wasn't sure, like, how is this going to play out? I would use that piece of evidence from my relationships and I would reassure myself in that process. Like, if it's true over here, it's got to be true over here too. And so I'm going to choose to believe that that also is going to be true over here. So it reinforced and established a stronger belief in this other area. And over time, it stuck, and it got to the point where the more I showed up to myself and to these new beliefs that I was cultivating in my mind, the more all these manifestations showed up to prove that that was true, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, so many things happened in a year's time financially for me that it was just quite radical. And it was because of all the inner work that I had done previously to build into that new belief, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense because when I was on your live and I heard that, and literally I started typing, we got to talk about this, make note, we got to talk about this. Also, about a book that you were gonna that you were gonna try to find.
Yes, I
Right?
found it. Yeah.
Yay! So the borrowing belief, what it took me to when I first heard you listening to it, it took me to a not story, but a life story that Michael Bernard Beckwith was sharing, and he at some point he was out in he was out in the beach, and he kind of floated. He was floating away, and he couldn't get back to the back to shore, and he was going further and further. And he said that he saw himself saying, in another situation, I could do this. I've done this before in another situation where I saw myself out of a situation. I can do this here too. And then of course he called on the divine. He says, come on, give me a push, give me a shove, show me something. And then a wave literally came. He just focused on the fact that he could get out of this situation. There were other situations that were not exactly like this, but they were life-threatening situations that he got out of. If he could do it there, he could do it here, right? And he just focused on seeing himself on the shore, right? And when I believe in the same scenario, when he got back to shore, he had been, before he had calmed himself and took himself to that meditative space of that, he had took his body, his body had went through a lot. And he didn't realize that he had hurt I think it was his right leg. And as he was walking, his right leg started to hurt worse and worse. And what he did was he focused on, he started the healing process of his body based on how well his left leg was feeling. And he used the belief of the wellness and wholeness of his left leg on the wellness and wholeness of his right leg. By the time he got where he needed to go, his leg was, starting to heal itself, starting to course correct. And the moment you said, borrowing that belief, he called it something different, but to me it was like borrowing the belief that his right leg could heal and have that feeling of the left leg because he's feeling that. So it was like, ooh, this is yummy. We got to talk about this.
Yeah. And isn't it fascinating, the power of the mind? Like, the more I go on, the more I just am fascinated by what it can actually do when you focus, kind of like you're saying. And, this too, kind of what came up for me as you're talking is it's so helpful to have hindsight, I think, too, to look back and to recognize all those moments or all those obstacles and things that you've transcended and overcome to help to propel you forward beyond this new obstacle. And
Right.
this is something I do a lot with my clients is like show them, because sometimes when we're in our own experience, we can't quite see what's actually
Right.
happening. But I often will reflect to them like, oh, can you see what you've done here and how this worked out for you? And like how amazing this turned out, and it's so nice to have that reflection, because then that helps you to see what's the bigger picture of what's happening so that you can continue on that journey towards, let's call it, more expansive thought or that abundance mindset. But yeah, I love that how you're sharing about his experience, because even physically, like there are physical things that we can heal in our bodies by way of directing our attention and focusing our attention toward healing
Yeah.
mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it. So,
It's so true. It's like going to sleep at night, right? And for me, I just used to give thanks for my body. Go to sleep, one lump sum. Just thank you, body. Thank you for all you've done for me today, right? And then in the morning, I would break it down. Thank you for, thank you, hands, for waking up. That whole kind of thing. I never thought to go to the cellular level
mm,
until I learned someone had shared with me that, I think it might have been not so, someone I was reading in Michael Beckwith's one of his
mm,
books about the gift. It was in his books. He'll give you a affirmation that you can use, right? And really, with me, I say take what resonates, leave what doesn't, because not all affirmations are for you, the individual. You kind of take it and you acclimate it to you, how it's going to serve you.
mm,
And I remember him saying, we are all born with the gift of health that is keeping us alive. Now, if and I remember him having in one of his services, I have wrote down in my mini notes that it's about what you speak to the gift of health to give it permission to flow in your body. You
mm,
actually speak it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that when I go to sleep, but I'm going to do it on the cellular level. I know that my body, from what scientists tell you and doctors tell you, your body, doctors will tell you a portion of it, that your body automatically, when you sleep, is the best time because certain programs shut down so other programs can turn on and start to work, and your cells regenerate, but it regenerates by the energy that we've already put into it. So it
mm,
already has a pre-recorded message that it's working on. And if it's working on that, I have a cold, I'm sick, I hurt all over. If you go to bed thinking about your aches and pains, this is what the gift of health is going to be hearing. And that gift of health is going to sit back or step back and say, okay, your wish is your command.
mhm.
When you want to feel, you want to feel discomfort, you want to feel this, then I have to step back. I can't perform for you.
Yeah.
I can't be that energy. And I just went, okay, nope. So when me and my dog Charlie lay down to go to sleep, I give the permission for the gift of health to start restoring and regenerating my cells at the cellular level.
Mm,
Go ahead, do what you know, do what you're capable of doing, do what you've done for me ever since I was a kid,
mm,
right? and never had colds. Do that for me, please. Right?
Mm,
And remind my ego to, take a step back and just watch the body at work. Watch
mm,
the process. It's okay for you, and give my ego, or that system that thinks that it has to be on and protect me. Okay, you can be on, but watch this at work. Right?
mhm. Oh,
Right?
I love that, Sandra. I know it's so like even in that, you're choosing to trust your body, right? You're letting go of fear by choosing to believe in its own system of restoration and health. And I love what you're speaking to on this, the physical aspect, because I do believe like when we're sick, we have pains or discomfort, and it's difficult to not focus on that because it's, kind of poking at us. But even in that, you can choose to focus on wellness
Mm-hmm.
versus sickness. And by doing so, you are actively promoting that in your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, again, like, I think it's such a powerful way to go about living, to have that sense of agency over your own well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and to say, like, I'm going to choose this because it's going to serve me. And then you watch it play out. I mean, I'm assuming that when you do that, do you feel like so much healthier, or more vitality, or what's the outcome of you choosing to go about it that
The
way?
outcome is, I'm uh, I'm starting to feel my hips shift, because with that also, with that, giving my permission for my body to restore itself, it also shines the light inward of the the resonating story that took me out of alignment. Right?
Mm,
And here's the story. Okay, laugh or don't laugh, it's okay. I laugh at it now. It I don't know, somewhere in the 70s, 80s. I did not, it was about, uh I'm going to try to put it in a, it was about not wanting to shift my hips. Not to say I didn't have an injury, I did. But the injury, I believe, came from a story that shifting my hips would get me looked at by undesirable men who
mm,
were looking at the hips and being, I'm not, my thing was, I'm not put on this planet to please you. So I'm going to have to change me so that you don't get pleased.
yeah.
It's a backwards, really backwards story. I never thought about that before, that I stopped shifting my hips. Shifting your hips helps you move.
Mm,
It helps your whole body. And then when I actually really did have uh, a pain, I hurt myself playing with my kids on the swings. Not the swings, the jungle gym. I think
mhm.
I was about in my 30s, and we had went to a place called Griffith Park, and my kids were playing on there, and my littlest one did not want to get there. He was afraid to flip. So I flipped with him. Fortunately, my hips did not flip the correct way, but I believe it was because my hips weren't used to shifting. Because I had that story of, I'm not going to shift to please you because you're into hips and you're into butt, that kind of thing. I'm going to stall me, right?
Mhm.
In Right, and there's that story that my body listened to.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. To protect itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, or to protect, not just to protect itself, but to protect, the allowing the ego to say, okay, you got to protect her, she doesn't want to shift her hips. Okay, what your ego isn't thinking about, your hips shifting you and keeping you in balance, and the movement of your body. It's like, okay, she doesn't want to shift her hips. We're now, it, in that story, it's I started to drag my feet in order to not shift my hips. So therefore I wasn't picking up my feet and walking. So my body was learning to do something differently that was not for its highest and greatest good, but it was, because it's energy, it's fulfilling the story, right?
Mm, yeah.
Chantel says, I'm going through withdrawal, switching seizure meds, all kinds of terrible side effects. Is there a way to minimize that? I think that's a great question for you. Do you think you have maybe a embodying answer for her? You know,
Well, yeah, I'm no medical professional, so I don't want to necessarily speak to like the specific
speak to the energy of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the first thing that comes up for me in this, and it's something that I speak often about, is this idea of following what feels good. So, so in this specific situation, I can understand it would be very difficult to tap into feel good emotions when you are mired down in certain side effects. But my encouragement would be to, as much as you can, continue to shift your attention elsewhere, right? Like what does feel good? Sure, there's always something we can choose, right? Even do you know who Viktor Frankl is?
No.
He wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a survivor of Auschwitz and the concentration camps. And in that book, he spoke about, you know, these horrific situations. They had every freedom stripped from them, like just terrible situations, so much pain. And even in that, he was making this assertion that you can still choose freedom, right? You still have your own perspective. You can still focus on other things. So you're not, even though if you feel so limited by your situation, whatever it is, you still have the ability to choose.
Right.
And I believe that when you go about life like that, regardless of what the circumstances are, you will naturally become more empowered as an individual. And when you feel more empowered, your perspective will change to where you're going to be able to see opportunities, or maybe, you know, outside of this situation, what would that be? I don't know because of the medical things that I'm just not familiar with, but I would say to start there.
Which
And
she did say that she does. Let me go back just
yes.
a minute. She said she does. Hold on. The Joe Dispenza. I've tried Joe Dispenza and different body healing meditations, but it's also about, if you're taking medications, always. And here, I'm a true believer. Always have an open dialogue with your doctor. If you see your doctor as an enemy, your doctor will be an enemy. But if you see your doctor as an advocate to help you by giving you their perspective, it's only a perspective, right? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be the end all or the be all of the story,
Yep.
but it means that you get to take the medicine that's making you, healing you in one place but making you feel bad in another. And we live in a time where you can get on Google or whatever you choose and find out what the different holistic versions are to this medication.
Mm.
Before you change any medication, you've got to have a conversation with your doctor. You've got to tell them why you don't feel good with it, what it's doing to you. And before you have that conversation with the doctor, have a sit down at the seat of your soul and speak to your higher being about what you want and what you see yourself having for your highest and greatest good,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and and embody that before you have the conversation with the doctor, and know that this doctor is going to have a different perspective,
Yeah.
and know that they might not meet all the criteria that you feel. I just went through that with my doctor. My blood pressure was up. I had some really challenging things and conversations and whatnot. So it was up from the for the week. And they wanted me to come back and do another read in 2 weeks. Yeah, I said okay. But my doctor was looking, different doctor since COVID, different doctor. The doctor changed. But what's great about them is they do look at the chart. They do have a conversation. So she's going, you don't take any of this medication anymore. I said, no, I've been off of it since for at least 3 or 4 years. Matter of fact, my prior doctor before you knew that I wanted to start addressing taking all these medications with eating better, more homeopathic way, and to reduce it, because I was just tired of having so many leg cramps, and all the medicines, all their side effects would say, oh, this is leg cramps are one of the thing, all of them. And so when COVID, and this is another thing, COVID was a guideline, because at that particular time I couldn't get in to really see doctors for a regular physical at the time that I took all my medicines out of my medicine cabinet. I started looking at it online. What can I do holistically until I can get back with my doctor, till I can get back on track, right? And then and I don't suggest this for anybody else, because like Carrie says, I'm not a physician. I just do me.
Yeah.
And I had to toy with it for a while. I had to find out what was good for my heart arrhythmia, the medicine for that. I had to find literally high blood pressure. They had put me on cholesterol. I literally, that was, early 60s. I looked like I had a medicine cabinet full of somebody who was 80 or 90 years old.
Yeah.
And before that conversation was taken up at the latter part of my 50s with my doctor. I told him, unacceptable. We have to do something, right?
Yes.
But it was a we, because he knew I was going the route of holistic, right? He didn't know that holistic was new for me. Holistic was coming out of kind of like, ooh, this is fearful. What if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
I've been on this medicine like forever, but I had been on a lot of that medicine for at least 20 years.
Wow. And I love how you took, I don't want to say control, but you asserted what you wanted, and you wanted an alternative approach, and you advocated for that.
Right.
So I love how you did that. And I think it's so important to really think these decisions through. And also I noticed that Chantel was saying that, what feels good for her is to rest, which she can do, or exercise feels good. Like spending time in all those areas that do feel good as much as you can, I think is so important, because ultimately that feeling will start to bleed into these other moments that don't feel so good. It slowly can start to take over. So, yeah, I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I love the way you said bleeds into what doesn't feel good, and having that open dialogue with somebody. When I go to my doctor to find out what ails me or what's wrong, and my doctor gives me, he or she gives me that label, I know what to concentrate on. And it's like, it's not that I'm not going to, if I have a cold that just won't go away, that means that there's something else that I need to address, and my doctor is going to take the test and show me where it is, and even give me medicine to address it, right? And I might take it to alleviate it right then, and then go, okay, what in this medicine is going to help me as preventative, right? So that I don't have to go back for this reason. Where do I need to, what organ do I need to talk to? what set of cells do I need to talk to, right? And for somebody I'm going to tell you, take what resonates for you. I'm not telling you to stop going to your doctor. I would never tell you that. You don't die on my watch from me telling you this. I'm just telling you, have a conversation with your doctor. What
Yeah.
works for one person does not work for another person. Somebody who's solely all they've ever been on is holistic medicines, they've got it down to a science. If you have not gone there yet, please keep a going dialogue, a growing dialogue with your doctor about what you want for you, and see where you can meet in the middle for that. I just went through that with my doctor. They're saying, well, I see you don't take, your blood pressure is up and you don't take that medicine anymore. I told her, I said, I understand that I go to Kaiser and I understand that you can't just go by me doing everything holistically. You have to look at my file. But I'm telling you, I want to do this holistically. If my blood pressure is out of whack, I'm going to go back and see what I stopped doing that I need to do, which was taking my cayenne pepper pills once a week. I realized that, ooh, how did I take that out? Because when I was taking it along with my meals, it was fine. My garlic pills as well. Eating more I eat a lot of garlic.
Oh,
My breath stinks,
I love
right?
garlic. It heals so much.
Right. But so doing that, right? But everybody is not the same. What if garlic works for one person, somebody else might be allergic to garlic. Garlic may be very natural to nature, but just because it's Mother Nature doesn't mean it's natural for the body, because we're unique. We're unique creative individuals that were created, with different what do you call it? Systems.
Yes.
So what works for me might not work for you. I don't say go take yourself off all your medicine and go holistic. Don't do me. I literally had to do me because literally my medicine was running out. It could not be refilled, and I wasn't going to die not doing something.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Well, and something too that was a thought that came up for me as you were talking is, as you're building more awareness, like even what you're saying is I was noticing what was going on, and then you start to broaden your awareness about what are things that I can do. And I think in that process, making the choice also to not really focus too much on what's wrong versus what's right. Because I think even with sickness, especially, it can be easy to focus on the problem because it's there and it's uncomfortable and it's painful. But if you can make that concerted choice to shift away from that and not really start to look at I'm sick or I'm unwell or this is wrong, this is broken, and towards something that says, how much is right? What is well? What is working well? And I think combining that along with the awareness and those more conscious choices to try things that work with your nervous system and your body, I think can really set you on the path to that holistic wellness that you're even talking about. So,
Yeah, the holistic wellness is, for me, wow, the divine, I just love the divine, is the triune, as a triune wellness. We're body, mind, and soul. We have the ability to through our creative ability, as a sovereign being, to heal ourselves. This is to tap into that and alchemize and change and rearrange and grow and expand our body. But we are also body. So there is a reason why doctors showed up. We can just say, all I think of is a person that said, all I want to do is be of service to others and help not just heal them, but cure them. They were looking for cures, right? It had nothing to do with the pharmaceutical companies that came in and said we wanted to control everything. The doctors, most of them, are looking to help people feel at ease and be well. And, it's kind of like my mother, I remember, and now I understand what she means. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Change
Mm-hmm.
the bath water and put the baby back in it, right?
Yeah.
Um so for me, it's kind of taking your triunion of self, of being that uh infinite, uh, multi-dimensional being, and just kind of opening up to it and saying, okay, who do I want to be now in me getting, okay, I'm feeling this pain. Well, oh, I've got fear of it. Where fear is an object that we're meant to feel and then let go of it. How do I let go of it? Oh, I can think about all the other places that I feel really good in, right? Doesn't mean that you negate the fact that you have a broken toe, or that
Right.
you broke your leg,
Yes.
or that you have you have your lungs aren't working in its perfect capacity because you've got a cough. It's about saying, well, while I'm healing, I'm going to focus on all the other things that are working 100%, 1000% okay. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
focus on those, right?
Yeah, I love that because what it suggests is, sometimes when you're practicing this focused shift, I've been in conversations where people say things like, well, does that mean that you're in denial of
Yeah,
reality? Right? Like, I have a broken toe. That's real. And to that, I would say, well, yes, and there's more, right? Yes, and you can shift over here too. So it is a both and. It's not that you're just repressing or denying that this thing is here, that this is bothering you, but you're also saying, taking a more empowered position and saying, yes, it's here, and I'm going to see it differently or focus differently or choose something differently, so they can go hand in hand together. It doesn't need to be this either or thing
right.
or deny it. So I love that you touched on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, okay, before we go, because I think you had to keep this to kind of sort of an hour, and we're already at the hour mark. Can you discuss a little bit of that book that you found for me?
Yeah. Now this, if I'm remembering correctly, was it yesterday in the
Yes.
live where I was talking about passive income?
Income?
That one?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I was sharing yesterday on my live was just different strategies that people could employ to further their financial progress in their life. I talk out so much about mindset that every now and again, people ask me about what are the concrete, tangible things that I can do in terms of action. And so that's where I was offering some ideas around passive income, which I love. And what I was saying also, though, is most passive income streams require some kind of upfront effort to establish them before they truly become more passive on the back end. So anyways, there was this great book that I read probably a couple years ago, and it's called Passive Income Aggressive Retirement.
Yes.
And the author her name's Rachel Richards. Funny, I actually met her at a conference I spoke at just a couple weeks ago out west. But I loved it because I can't remember how many ideas she lists, at least 10, maybe 20, just creative solutions on things that you can do. And I think the one that I pulled from this book that I implemented was the idea that if you live in a house and you have a basement or an attic, you can actually rent out a portion of that and generate a little bit of passive income. And so I looked into that and I found there's a platform out there called, I think it's like iNeighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you can list your space if you're not using all of it, even if it's a small, 8 foot square foot space, and you
Mm-hmm.
list it, and then somebody who needs a little bit of storage can find you, and then every month they pay you to store stuff in your basement. And so, just like creative solutions like that you might not think about,
Right.
to help you free up more of your time so that you can do the things that you enjoy. That's what everybody wants more of,
Right.
is time to do what they want. So anyways, again, it's called Passive Income Aggressive Retirement,
Okay.
and by Rachel Richards.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
See how God, see how I told you it. Ooh, this just flowed. So many
Mm.
tasty morsels in this vibrational hour. Before we before we end, two things. I want you to tell everyone where they can find you, what you do, the services that you provide, and then before you do that, is there a question? You said you had questions that you wanted to ask me. Is there? I'm ready.
Yeah, well, let's start with the questions. I love asking questions because I also have my own podcast, and it's so fun to hear other people's stories and their insights to expand all of our perspectives. So, for you, I guess I would ask you, Sandra, like, what would you say has been one of the most, I love to talk about moments where we become more empowered. Like, if you reflect on your journey, what is one of the strongest memories or moments that you have that brought you more in tune with your own, we'll call it divine nature, or your own power, your sovereignty?
Oh, okay, there are so many moments. Okay, because it's all about growth and expansion. But I believe, okay, this is a moment that I have not thought about in a long time, but the divine is giving to me that I really never thought was a sovereign moment. Okay, so basically, I got married when I was 2021 to a 21-year-old. He was my high school sweetheart, and it was based off a story that we grew up in. Dogmatic story of you marry your high school sweetheart, you find what is considered the white picket fence, you have
Mm,
2.3 kids,
yes.
and the man is going to be the head of the household. He's going to take care of you, and you're going to live happily ever after. Now, my mom had a different perception of what she saw her daughter doing, but I was, for the lack of, I was strong-willed. All right, so I had that story. I had to live that story. The first person that came out of that story was my ex-husband. He left the household. He was at that point in time, the early 70s, late 70s, or late 70s, early 80s. It was considered a spouse out of the home, and I ended up being on welfare. Okay,
Mm.
and what had happened was there was a moment there was a moment of how I knew that the universe was conspiring in my favor, was that I had said out loud, I'm tired of being married in name only. Because every time someone would come in that wanted to, every time a male would come in that wanted to um, uh, just be nice to me or just be nice to the kids, and the kids, I did not tell my kids, don't tell your dad this, don't, that wasn't my thing. It was just me living life. And I noticed whenever there was that shift of someone taking interest in the family, it wasn't just about me. He would show up, play house for a little while, and then when I guess he felt that that I guess that point was gone, he was off, right? So there was a moment where I heard something, and I heard it from my what were they weren't quite teenage, they were preteen, and they made my daughter made a statement, and I kind of went, I listen to my kids when they talk, and I said, really, that's this? And she said, yeah, I've seen it on the mantle, without sharing, because that part of the story was also my ex-husband's story,
Mm.
so I can't tell it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I can only tell you my perception of it was, okay, I don't want to be married in name only, right? So the moment I said that, it happened to be that the kids were supposed to go to a meeting with my representative at AFDC thing. And she looked at me, the representative said, Sandra, usually you're a little bit happier and you're talking about, I'm always talking about believe, receive, ask, believe, receive, that whole kind of thing. And I just looked at her, and when I looked up at her, I had these tears that I was fighting back. And she just politely told the kids, hey, would you go out with so-and-so? And she gave them coloring books and crayons. And she said, I want to talk with your mom. Is that okay? And, they gave me a hug and went on. And she said, let the tears go. And while they're streaming, tell me what's going on. And I told her, I said, I don't want to be married in name only. I don't want to do this anymore. I need, I told her, I need freedom so that I could raise my kids with freedom.
Yeah.
That's the only word that I knew,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know words like sovereignty and, wellness and wholeness and all of that. And as she's doing that, she hands me the tissue box, and then she opens her Rolodex, she writes something down, she goes in her drawer, she and she holds her finger up and she says, hold on, and she makes a call, and she says, I wanna she said something like, do you have an appointment? Very cryptic. Do you have an appointment? What are the appointment schedules? And she writes it down, and then she hands me, she says, she leans over and she says, you're in luck today. And I just looked at her. I said, luck, really? Kind of thing. She hands me the pamphlet. On the pamphlet, she wrote down the appointment, and she hands me this paper. It's a waiver. It's a waiver fee. And she says, let me know if you don't have a babysitter. I'll try to work something out, but I'd like you to show up at this place, and here, everything's taken care of. You don't have to worry about anything. Go here. And literally, when I trusted, like you said, I just, all I could do was trust. She said, go here. The universe is working on your behalf, right? And literally, it was, back then, they would have these lawyers that would do these kind of round tables, and they would give their time free, and they would help you fill out your own forms for divorce or whatnot, and in it was like, I think there were like 10 people there, and literally it was a fee waiver. It was I want to cry about it, because right now it was so free. It was, I think that was my monumental look at what sovereignty was, what freedom was looking at the universe working on my behalf.
Yeah.
Right? And literally paying for a divorce, $10.
Wow.
All the file fees were waived. I didn't have to worry about getting somebody to deliver the first papers, and they did it in sections. I think by the end of, I think they did it in like every 2 to 3 weeks, whatever time it took for the first, everything to be filed. After one thing was filed, you come back, you do a next thing. It was freedom. It was just that was freedom. And now, like it happens on every live, I always go through this little dark night of the soul where this light pulls forward something where it was happening, even though I wasn't totally fully conscious, fully spiritually conscious. I'll put it that way. We're always very conscious as we're living, whether we're doing it in body and mind, or whether we're doing it body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
We have a consciousness to us. So that was the moment where I saw the ask, which wasn't an ask. It was just, I don't want to be here anymore. That was my asking. I didn't see it as the divine saying, your wish is my command.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so definitely, that was that moment. That was the conscious, unconscious moment.
Gosh, that's so powerful. I mean, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of kind of my journey and exit from my marriage was similar in terms of like that prompting towards freedom. I knew that word has been true ever since then. And that, I don't know if you would say the same, but that's what led to my awakening is pursuing that freedom on every level, mental, emotional, relational, financial. And I think that's what puts us in contact with our true self
Right.
is allowing yourself to desire that and then opening yourself to co-create more freedom with the universe in the ways kind of like you're saying. So cool to hear your story about that.
Yeah. It was, I mean, if you could sit down and I draw the picture from from the from the filling out of the papers to literally submitting all the papers, and then there was a moment where I had other information that almost put it like a cork in it. And I literally actually got to talk to the deputy commissioner that was oversigning the divorce papers. She literally, I don't know, I had this moment where it's, okay, I want to stop this because I think I need to do this a different way. And literally, I got to talk to this woman who is in power, of here, and usually doesn't pick up a phone. She picked up her own phone, and I said my name, and she says, I think I just ran across your paperwork. She remembered my name. She remembered the paperwork that she says, I think I just signed this. And I said, I told her my dilemma. I told her what I wanted to do. And she told me, she says, Sandra, she says, I'm going to give you the scenario is your paperwork is about to make you, and she used the word free of this situation. Now, if you put it on hold and try to go about it a different way, there's not a guarantee that you'll be free of this situation in a now moment. This might take years. And she said, but do you, I've got to take another call. I'm going to put you on hold. Think about it. She said, just think about it. And literally, I think I had that quiet moment where it was being in touch with my higher being saying, freedom comes in all forms. What do you want? Right? Right? And then I just said, the first time I ever used the term, let it be. That wasn't from the song, The Beatles, Let It Be. Okay? It was actually, it took up vibrational resonance in me. That's the words I can use now. Back then it was just something came over me, and when she got back on the phone, she says, okay, what do you want to do? I said, let it be. Just let it flow, let it go. And she said, okay. And literally a week later, my divorce papers came in the mail, and I just wanted to climb on the rooftop
Mm,
and shout freedom and just shout yes. It wasn't that I hated my
right.
ex-husband. I didn't hate him. Do you
Sure.
know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, I think right now I have to thank him for being the one. Maybe the way he did it wasn't quite the right way, right? But he was the first one that realized that this wasn't the right relationship
Aligned.
for his highest and greatest
Right.
good,
It
right?
it wasn't
It
aligned. Right.
wasn't aligned.
Yeah.
And it was that story that helped me start to put back, as I started to see the pieces of my puzzle and started to feel them as they shifted, as I was trying to put them back, going, oh, I'm not this person anymore.
Mm,
Okay, that piece doesn't fit there anymore. Whew, throw it, let me find, oh, there's an alchemy. Oh, wait, let me get that piece back. I can alchemize it.
yeah.
I can change it. What does it need to be now?
Hmm.
And then seek me out and then put the puzzle piece down. That's called expressing life, right?
Hmm.
So
Wow.
it's like, whoa. Even
Yeah.
me just I haven't thought about that, but that's a shadow walk
Mm.
that I just walked through. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
that question.
I had a feeling we might get some really the goal behind it was for inspiration, and I think, yeah, it's a really powerful story that you shared.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think it's beautiful how you walked through that and
yeah.
stayed open to it.
It,
So,
literally the, the the marriage in name only. Put it this way: by the time I was divorced, it would have been a year before I would have been married in name only 10 years. That's a long time.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's releasing the little girl, or the young naive little girl that was hiding behind all that darkness and that bubble wrap of that story, right? Actually got to be free right now, this very minute.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
okay, oh, you're not naive. You experienced freedom. I just didn't invite you to come forward to experience it,
Mm,
right? Hi,
mm-hmm.
Brad. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So, so powerful. Gosh, I feel like we could talk for eons about freedom
Yes,
and energy and
and everything.
protection.
So I hope you will come back in the future,
Yeah,
you know,
love.
and wonderful humans. Brad's going to be on my Soul Conversations with podcast.
Oh,
I think we worked out the dates, but he's got to give me a confirmation closer to his date. So
yeah,
definitely,
very
yeah.
exciting.
Uh,
So
So
exciting.
will so
Well,
will you tell everyone where they can uh if you've got workshops, if they want to become a client, could you give
yeah.
them a little information?
Absolutely. Yeah, so if anybody wants to find my website, they can go to carriedoan.com, Doan. And that just kind of gives an overview of how I work with my clients. I specifically, right now, I'm focused on women and money, trying to empower women, especially if they're going through difficult transitions, like maybe a divorce, or maybe they're just feeling like they don't have the literacy to know how to use money to their advantage. Because I really believe that if more women have resources, we're going to balance out so much on this planet.
Yeah,
And so I do that primarily through coaching through mindset and strategy. But a large part of it is on the mindset piece of it, so that we can broaden that perspective away from scarcity toward abundance. And then that opens you up to manifest so many of the desires that you have. So that's a little bit of how I work with clients. I have a free masterclass called Pleasure Based Wealth Principles. And it's this idea of not challenges the idea that you have to deprive yourself in order to create wealth.
Right.
And I take a different approach where it's, kind of like we were talking about, focused on what feels good, adding pleasure into your portfolio, and feeling good, like feeling safe with money in your nervous system, because all of that work primes you to be able to create whatever the outcome is. If it's, I want a padded bank or retirement account, or I want to go on a vacation and I don't feel like I have the means to do that.
Right.
So we go through that approach, and so I also, gosh, I do have a book in the works that's soon to be published. I know it's been like 2 to 3 years in the making, and it's called Dare to Desire, and it's about a woman's journey, kind of similar to yours, like finding more freedom and what it took for her to go on her own hero's journey and actualize and manifest every desire that she wanted in her life. So that's going to be coming out soon.
Yay!
Yeah.
I want to purchase, and I want a signed copy. So we'll figure that one out, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So
definitely.
yeah.
So, everyone, there's a arrow up there. If you are not following Carrie, please follow her. Check her Instagram page out. Check her website out. And don't be afraid to ask for help. You know,
Mhm.
and I know that I've been hearing around that. How do I put this? Her free master class, that's currency.
Mm.
We've been hearing people tell us, if you do things free, you're not going to put you're not going to make the effort. But if free is what you need as currency, vibrational currency, please take advantage of her offering,
Mm.
because at some point it's not free to her.
Mhm.
It's not free to her when she had to go take the workshops, or she had to go pay for a book on Amazon to read up on, to gain her knowledge. But she wants to offer it to you, and
Mm.
that turns into currency. And when you accept the free, you're putting currency out there for the universe to give it back to you. That
That's beautiful.
That's called building wealth, right?
I love
So
that.
thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add one more thing to that, Sandra, is that every month or two, I open my books up for a free manifesting coaching session to a couple of people. So I don't have any currently for August, but if somebody's interested and they want to have just that free experience for an hour, where I can help them maybe shift their perspective or give them an actionable step so that they can start to manifest more or start building more wealth, reach out to me, and I'm
Reach
happy to pass
out,
those.
click that arrow up there. It's going to drop down. You're gonna see her, follow her, and then DM her. And only you can be serious about you. She can't make you show up. But the thing that I will say is, if you waste her time, the universe will make sure that the law of cause and effect will happen, where somebody else or a situation or a circumstance will be a waste of time for you.
Mm,
Okay? That's just the way the law works. It what you put out, you're going to get back in one form or another. All
yeah,
right?
I believe it. Wow. Such a pleasure. So thank you so, so much for having me. This was such a energizing conversation that I had
Yes.
with you, and we got to have more,
We
I
got to
think.
have more. Yes. I think maybe we need to do a series.
Yeah.
you
Oh
know
gosh, we can take this
who
and
knows, maybe a four episode series. I you know
yes.
And thank you, beautiful people, for showing up to the conversation, at putting your comments in, asking questions. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful Friday conversation. I just love you guys so much. And remember, PMDU Carrie. You know what?
Oh,
What is P?
Maybe DM? Does it mean DM?
Oh, DM. Yeah, DM. I'm not sure.
Maybe they sent me a
She,
DM.
she usually does a correction with an asterisk mark. So, but anyway, so as we end this, I close this energy session with everybody with wholeness and wellness, with unconditional love, with knowing that the universe is conspiring in your favor to be the for you to be the sovereign divine authentic person that you are to be in your most now moment. So,
Beautiful.
okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, let's do this again. We
Yes.
will.
Yes. We'll manifest it.
Right? This will be in my bio, in my IG bio, but in about a week's time, you'll be able to see it in my Spotify. So that means if you missed it, if you've come in and you've missed it, you'll be able to listen to it on Spotify while you're driving. So keep an eye out. You'll be able to hear this conversation on my Spotify.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Take care. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye bye.